Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Okay, we got to approve some minutes here, so this might get a little bit confusing. So we have minutes from regular meeting on 3/13. Want to do those first? We had that. We had a special meeting on 3/13 and a special meeting on March 20th.
All right, so that's in order.
Sure. So
So
go
would you
ahead.
tell me the date again?
Well, it says here, I got the agenda because I don't have a printed one tonight.
Here, I
Yeah.
have one.
I got it. Your problem.
Thanks.
If it's on there, I don't.
It says regular 3/13/25,
That is correct.
and then it says special 3/13.
It's the walkthrough. That was the walkthrough prior, so it should have been flipped, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting on March 13th, 2025.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Oh, discussion.
Discussion. Anybody got to add anything? All those in favor?
Aye.
Special meeting on 3/13.
Make that
25?
motion, we accept the minutes for the special meeting of March 13th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the special meeting on March 20th, which was the walkthrough at Gildersleeve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on March 20th, 2025.
20 was that Valley View?
that was-
Associate?
I'll second that. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment? Anybody on there? Public comment? Okay. Discussion on site walk. Anybody's got anything from Brownstone, Valley View, or Gildersleeve?
Are we gonna go through the list? Is that how we're gonna do it?
I just have something on Brownstone. I know that we walked through and we were discussing the elevator. And then we had some time to look at some numbers. There was some information that was made public that really isn't correct. So we did look at the elevators. The elevators were estimated at a very low cost. We have new numbers that are much higher. So we've
In the original sightline.
we've incorporated, and I'm looking for a second opinion. Written opinion with our current contractor as well on state contract, but my initial walkthroughs with them, both schools, actually, we had looked at the high school side too as well, because it's an older elevator. Are in line with those numbers. We're looking for something formal, so we are much more expensive for replacement, which is recommended at Brownstone, so. Although we're ADA compliant per se, we definitely have recommended, they have recommended replacement of that elevator if we do use it for a school or
Who was that, Bob?
Kone.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for formal for them.
Did you get a
I'll
number?
have it
Because
Friday.
remember that other company where we all met, Chris and I met you?
Just the verbal, anywhere from 225 to 250.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So Kone, I'm looking at belt drive instead, which is, they say belt, it's not belt, it's a cable drive. So sometimes there's some savings there, because I know that shaft can adapt to that.
Right, but we're not gonna be over 1 million like prior was trying to say if we had to put the elevator on the outside and all
No.
that, so.
They were saying if we had to relocate it, it
Correct.
sounds. I
Which
think
was
the
never
question that I
part of the
understand.
original plan or relocation, that came up with me.
So you're
talking
saying we
about-
don't have to relocate it, but the cost is higher than what was in here?
If we were to.
The shaft is perfect. We looked in the control room. And it looks like there was some work done years ago with that facade there, that brickwork. So we know that the shaft size to accommodate an ADA compliant with the new controls and a new piston is doable right in its spot, which is really good news.
That is good.
Yeah, if we were ever had to go outside, which we were concerned with in the beginning, but we're good. So the original numbers that didn't even include an outside shaft to the building were in the tune of like $100,000 on
I
the
think
old.
I'm saying 150.
Yeah, 50 is kind of where I went.
Yeah.
But even prior to that, the Sightlines report just had some numbers of like 40,000. So. So I don't think we'll ever exceed the 255, so that's a good number, but we're looking.
That's if, yeah.
So
if
I
we're-
tried to
yeah,
get the numbers today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they want to meet with me tomorrow instead of giving me the paperwork. So I'll certainly forward those along for Brownstone, because that was a big item that we
Yeah.
kind of discussed on that, so.
And then
just wanted to make sure that.
While you're on Brownstone, another thing that was pointed out to me. The electrical upgrade, a lot of that, Bob, is because we're gonna potentially have the air conditioning current. It just simply isn't gonna handle it.
Yeah, well, I think, no, the air conditioning absolutely cannot handle it, but, we did talk a little bit about that with the elevators and stuff too, with the new controls and the demand for a higher wattage and things. The overall campus is just so underpowered.
So-
We really can't even run like even a window unit without, losing like a whole wing as far as breakers.
The reason I brought
So-
it, the reason I brought it up is like, think of, so whatever portion we allocate to the upgrade on the air conditioning, we should be able to get reimbursement of the 54% if I'm reading all the rules of the state. Because we simply wouldn't be able to power the air conditioning. And I'm not looking.
Yeah, I don't know
break that
how the
out.
electrical works in there because it could fall into an efficiency category as well, and I'm looking at that.
And the air quality. We simply couldn't run a better air quality system without it.
And that's a good point, but I have no idea how they look at, so. You're correct, and in summary, in quick terms of that, I'm already looking at Brownstone's replacements for their boilers to find an efficiency grant to use that. And it is amazing what you have to put into these systems to even get the threshold to get the grant. It's like, well, what kind of burning? High efficiency, well, how high efficient? Is it this efficient? Or is it, so we're going through that now, because we certainly want to, and that's all about money. So you want to get those efficiencies or those standards to get the grants, but how much is it? You got to look at the offset. So if it's going to cost $80,000 more to put it in and you get 40 back, well, then I look at that. What's the payback on the biggest? No, if it's not percentage, some of them are just flat out, we'll give you a better rate with Eversource. I don't like that.
Right. Yep.
I want the money up front.
Keep
I
up
want to
with the
get
work.
the money back for the efficiency right away. So, but you're right, there's so many variables there, then we can go on for hours on that. So each one is different.
Can I to back up just a step back to the elevators, that 225 to 255 number that estimate that was for the biz elevator. Is that also a figure that we need to be plugging in at the high school, or the high school numbers you're thinking are?
So the high school is probably gonna be an upgrade,
But it doesn't need to be replaced.
maybe a valve upgrade in the future, or no, the shaft is fine,
I did one there before they went.
Right.
so
I was just making sure I
that's
understood.
probably good for 20. But, they'll measure that, it'll be very interesting what they came back with that, I have no idea I'm thinking that it probably needs about maybe $40,000 worth of upgrades, which would be bearing sets, door pulls, which I say the rails that pull the door open, some of the sensors that are in there. Obviously, the comm system in there, that's all included in what they call an upgrade package.
I think the biggest thing that when we were there and they pointed out in the upgrade package that I was a big fan of is the new one will have battery assist
Battery
to
system.
get you back down, doors open, so it doesn't need to be powered by a generator, meets code. So that also is another huge thing we wouldn't have to put in is the generator system. and all.
Yeah, you have to do that now. All those escalators, everything.
Yeah,
has to
so
be
I would-
turned to home.
Yep, I like that. Seemed reasonable.
It's easier for firefighters, you just get them out in the basement.
Mm.
That's all I have on.
You want to say something?
No, I mentioned the electrical, which obviously a certain portion of that will have to get allocated to the heat. I don't know, we'll have to obviously figure that out
Runs everything.
because that'll change the reimbursement.
Anybody else have anything on the sidewalks they want to talk about?
We're still gonna go through the list, right?
Can. I don't, so,
Could I bring up something from the sidewalks?
absolutely.
So one of the things that we talked about at both Valley View and Gildersleeve was that neither of those schools have a sprinkler system. And when I went back through the capital improvement list, there's nothing in there.
They have isolated areas where there's combustion and stuff, but no.
There's not,
overall,
and there's nothing in there to account
not a
for
full system.
installation of a sprinkler system, and my memory from the site walk is that's a pretty expensive undertaking. So I guess my question really was, are there any other things like that at either of those facilities that we should have on our radar that's not, you know, it's not on the capital improvement radar?
Is in the, go ahead, I'm sorry,
No, please go to.
is the. Don't, you know, fly off the handle here, I mean, is renovate as new? That would be in there for that, I thought we discussed that
Yeah.
that day, right?
Yeah, because that's to meet code.
We have to bring in.
You're gonna have to do
separate
that on a
water
regular-
main, the whole 9 yards for
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Your renovate to new goes to state standards.
Correct.
It's like you
Correct.
have to build based on, you know, what they think you have to build. When you start reducing, then you can take things out. And then a lot of those are based on the square footage, and the fire marshal gets involved based on protection, you know, they can do, and I've looked at many of those plans, you can do partials and fulls. You can protect egresses and doorways and combustible areas, which are in some of the areas you don't have to, but it's really escape. You have some leeway, but depending on, you know, how you're building the school, we can be, even here in Portland, the fire marshal's office can say you're gonna sprinkle the whole thing.
Yeah.
Period. You're gonna meet this code because you basically.
One of the good things, at least that Gildersleeve Fryer pointed out, was they would have to run a calc to double check, but
Yep.
because a lot of those classrooms had exit to the outside, that square footage could then, it makes it better. So in other words, it may not need, I don't want to scare the parents, it may not need a sprinkler system. I don't know if it does or doesn't at Valley View or Gildersleeve. I don't believe we're in any violation by not having it. And we have a very good alarm system. That are, you know, smoke and isolated.
At Gildersleeve, we just updated. it
Yeah,
last year.
the heads look very
Strobes,
nice.
can off.
So I don't want anybody to panic if we have unsafe buildings.
No, we're protected in the areas of interest, so,
Bless
yeah. So, bless you, so, you know, classrooms themselves might not need sprinkler heads, but hallways would, because you're, you know, protecting the areas that you would escape. The doorways and escape, I call them hatches in the rooms at Gildersleeve, I don't think they would be compliant.
Yeah.
No.
Because they're too small.
I think you'd
So
have to
those are
switch a full
basically a
door
window
shut.
now, so, yeah, those can be expanded as that stuff, but they usually don't do that.
That
Some of them
classroom we
were-
went in at the end looked like they had replaced the door with a full door.
Yeah, there were a few that were, and you
There's some
could,
cutout.
and I
for
believe
doors.
you're right, Bob, it would have to be switched to that if they wanted
Yep.
to claim it as.
Yep.
But he said there's a formula, and I don't want to speak for Fryer, they're not here. He can
There is.
speak to that. Whether we would have to or not. He wasn't sure.
It's a fire formula, and it's a big one.
Yeah, I think that's what he alluded to. So I don't want to, I wouldn't panic on that. I don't believe we're going to be triggered to that, because I think if we were going to trigger that, we probably would have already had, because fires, you do have to do. You don't get out of jail. free.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Correct, yeah, so I,
You're grandfathered in on existing buildings for some stuff.
not, well, and the fire
It's
is
pretty.
fire, they're pretty,
Alarms
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Sprinkler systems somewhat, but as soon as you change occupancy or do any renovation or whatever, you get thrown into the new codes.
yep,
So-
if you break
I mean,
that
we can
threshold,
ask.
for sure.
Yeah, Ray to look at that, you know.
I guess the other thing, the good thing that came out of the walkthrough at Gildersleeve was obviously we found, and I remember speaking to the older generation in town, there were bathrooms, toilets in the closets of, I believe, 2 of the wings, and Bob can speak to that. That was what the,
It's that one wing that we saw when you walk on the right, which is the, Jen, yours,
The
right?
fourth grade,
Fourth grade wing.
yeah.
That-
Do you want
the
to
old
point out though
closets.
that
I think
those,
that, yeah, I
those
think that back
closets right
wing,
now
they say
are
has a
big
pool
enough
line buried
for
there
like a
too.
para to help, for like a child who has.
At the end of the hallway, the
disabilities,
back one.
Hold on, that's an important point, Jen.
That those closets that we now use, which are in rooms 3 and 4, I believe. Because it used to be 1 and 2, but then they made that into an actual ADA compliant bathroom. Those little closets would not be helpful for like if a para had to go in there to help a child with toileting. So that's something that, I mean, they literally are just teeny tiny, like with just a bathroom, like not a sink or anything. So that would be a problem.
So the sink they want outside the bathroom. and
But
they
the
searched
service is
yeah,
there.
right.
Maybe the area can be enlarged, which would be.
It could be.
Would you lose square footage in the classroom, but you can, because the. I'm not worry about water, you can bring it in through the ceiling, but the biggest thing is the waste.
And you
And
could,
that line is there on that side.
Bob's spot on with it.
There's a trunk line on the other side, but I don't believe it's in the building. But I
They
looked
thought
at
that-
I
they
think
thought
it
there were-
runs out.
The person I spoke to, and they could be wrong, thought 3 or 4 of the old along the back had them in it. when they were little. So we're talking about little memories.
Look at that print and I followed that.
So I'm not
trunk
sure.
line
There
right-
obviously has to
right
be
down to
something
the
because
other
there's
house.
sinks in that. I saw sinks.
Yeah,
There is.
kindergarten.
Oh, do you remember?
Probably had a bathroom there, that was it.
Yeah, so the expensive thing is the trunk line. So if we had to put bathrooms at the Gildersleeve in the classrooms, the big expense, it's nice knowing there's a trunk line. So that was all I was.
Yeah,
pointing
just,
out.
you're just adding space.
You still have work to do.
Trunk
It's
is
not,
there.
it's not cut and dry either. So I don't want to sugarcoat something. I want
That's
to.
kind of nice find.
Yeah, but it's very important that that's one of our options that's there.
On the walkthroughs or what you wanted to go through, Ben?
So I think we should do the same thing we did on every other school in case we identify something.
Which one are you on?
The high school. I keep them in order, but,
So Gildersleeve and Valley View are the two remaining.
yes.
If we're gonna do that, then we should.
Yeah.
Do it and maybe Bob can
Bob's the best.
walk us through it.
I would
Items.
probably just excuse myself and grab my laptop.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of hard copy in the school. Started to do some work on them.
Are we gonna start at Gildersleeve or Valley View?
No, it's a weird. It's easy. Take me 2 seconds. if you don't mind. If you want. I'm looking at it real quick.
I don't know. Packet started in high school. I don't know which one they're gonna start. They're either gonna-
Gildersleeve.
At first,
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, I confused. Do we have the projector, Dr. Britton? or- And this one's fine. Are you not being involved? Is it gonna be as packed?
Yeah, we got.
Oh,
And then
same
these.
amount of grades, right? Yeah.
What
more.
Plus the fourth grade is
Oh.
fourth grade
Yeah.
chorus that's singing with the big kids.
I was so impressed last night
Oh,
with the
it's
bands. It was just phenomenal. And I love Wicked and the high school when they did that. I was like singing along. I was so excited.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
They go from like
That's really
Twinkle Little Star
I
to
know.
Harry
That
Potter,
was fun.
you know, through.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
You always start with hot cross
Oh,
buns.
Yeah.
Three, no wonder.
Yeah.
I think it's like my very favorite music event
Yeah.
of the year
it's
because
really
of
great.
that. Like, it's just incredible to see them from
Yeah.
year to year and how much progress they make as
Yeah.
musicians in the span of 1 year is just kind of mind blowing.
Yeah.
I
really
think it's
cool.
really inspiring too.
Yeah.
You know, for all those fifth graders.
That's why they've always done it that way.
Yeah.
The looks on the young kids' faces when they.
Yeah.
For a while, when they get into the middle school, they're like, but when the high school band starts playing,
Yeah.
they're just, you can watch their faces, they're just glued to it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And for the younger siblings to sit in the audience and start
Yeah.
thinking about what instrument they want to play someday. It's just
That's
everything
always the
about that
highlight
is so
at fourth
genius.
grade, the end of the year,
Yeah.
and the music teacher comes in and they get to touch and feel and see all the instruments and
Yeah.
talk to the friend about it, and
And you
it's
couldn't,
really fun.
you couldn't pull that off in a bigger town. So that's something that's really pretty special about Portland.
You have to have a huge space.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect size. I was worried last night. I was, people come. Oh my God. Capacity 1,100 people.
Yeah.
It's all over.
No, it's wonderful.
The music boosters did well last night.
Yeah. I was also really impressed that we had an all-state musician, like that was, wow.
Do they still put banners up for all speed?
They,
Yeah,
they do,
And they
do
do auditorium.
auditorium.
Yep, I made a note of it.
Oh, no.
We have it up here.
I hope.
Different places might be able to leave stuff. I'm serious, I was using that today. I'm not even kidding.
Can you fit that in here?
Mhm.
Where are we? Where are we going?
Going to Gildersleeve.
Gildersleeve.
Okay. So I started to work on Gildersleeve. And I'll just give you a summary before we go. And I came up with an estimate of around. 9 million, which 6 million of that would need escalation. So we're pretty close to 10 million, but what's not in there is I put 1.5 million in for the parking lot, which is more like 2. So I think we were at Gildersleeve's total capital improvement project number that came to us with eligibility came to us at about 10.6 from Fryer's original report after we looked at capital for those buildings.
That was with the park lot, Bob?
So no,
Okay.
his number was not with the park.
Nice
Thank
try,
you.
Carl.
So we kind of found that out after that. The parking lot was not included in the capital improvements, but was included in the renovate to new at 1.7, which was 2018 number. Okay, but that plan, if anything is done there, that's the plan. Because it incorporates drainage and everything on the backside of that school.
Now,
The 2018 estimate was 1.7 million, but you're anticipating it would be,
It's gonna be much
Over 2.
you're guessing 2
2 million was my
plus
estimate.
escalation, or you're guessing
That's
2
2 million.
with escalation.
I asked Jacobson to do that for me, and unfortunately Jeff went out and had knee surgery like 4 days after I asked him, so I haven't followed up. He's just getting back to work. I wanted him to take a look at this and then just
Yeah.
bring the numbers up to date, which for today's unit costs and things like that. Some stuff might go up, some stuff might go down, but I thought that percentage factor of 2 million probably.
So you're talking like 12 million for that project, if we do the driveway too.
My numbers are about 11 million with the drive.
So,
Fryer's numbers would go to 13.
so your numbers are about 11 million, Bob. Does that have any reimbursement in that 11 or no?
No, I
Okay.
just do escalation. I don't, so the capital reimbursement
Would be,
on, it's 28% on, and I don't know. I don't know what gets 20%.
Yeah,
That's where we
yeah,
get advice.
that's-
What does
yeah, we're
get
gonna- yeah,
28%?
we
What
could guess
might
all
get
day long. We're not gonna get
51%? A
No, we just want to
Right.
know what we think the
Boilers.
value is,
Yeah.
and Fryer can guide us
So-
through what is eligible for you.
yes,
You're
that's.
taking a big stab. at it.
No, yeah, I wouldn't want to put you in that spot. So we're thinking somewhere around 11 after we go through this list. Then obviously we'll still scan through this list.
Yes, we had some good prices.
Yep, and then we potentially on the, obviously, we can look at a few of the big tickets like the HVAC. And the roof, we know Fryer said on the record here with those are 50-something% reimbursable. I guess my
Roofs
question,
right now are 51%. If they're, and I will read this to you, it's important to know this. If they're designed, they have to be designed, so you have to do some engineering on a roof before you replace it, which is just structural stuff. To state and local codes as well as OS, CG and R guidelines for an SD reimbursement. Pretty critical stuff. So there's some engineering that has to go into that, and you have to replace the roof their way.
But also,
Cost.
let's keep in mind, our estimate for reimbursement is 51% as of this past June. We, we're talking now, not this coming June, but a year from June, we will have a new reimbursement rate
Yes.
from the state based on our current
yes,
grant list situation and all the other factors they weigh in. So we're guessing.
yeah, and it's going to, I believe, go down. I think you're spot on.
I think it's
What-
gonna go down.
Yeah, what you're saying is accurate, and I think that's gonna apply to both, whether we're doing
Yes.
renovations or
Yes.
whether we're doing renovate to new. That's such a valid, but I don't think we need to be guessing on those. We
No,
sit here all
but-
day. We've got bigger.
But it's just something to keep in the back
Oh,
of our heads
under-
that we don't know exactly what we're eligible for.
And now that you bring
If
that
if
up.
we did capital improvements on Gildersleeve, would that mean that we wouldn't have to reduce the size either because we're not renovating to new?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that's important, I think.
Yeah. That might, bringing that, yes, but we may be forfeiting some other stuff because we're never gonna meet the square footage code. So we may have been eligible to a few other things, but then we wouldn't be able to because we'd be so far over the square footage. Fryer kind of explained it to me that way.
Yeah.
There would,
We were crazy over the square footage.
oh no, we were quite a bit. And one of the things I was shocked, I went back and watched the meeting. He said, just take off the modulars, I can't even speak, and there aren't any. So I was surprised that wing in the back, he kept saying it was modular.
Like the back, like the art and music wing.
Whatever wing he wanted to remove, he said was a module wing, and it's
I don't
not.
remember him saying that.
I had to go back and watch it because I didn't. He did, and I wrote that down. And it wasn't Mike, it was the other gentleman. Price. So to your point, no, we wouldn't have to give up because that's a great, now that we're triggering that conversation, how much spare room we have 3 grades there now.
We do. 2 to
Like how
4.
much excess space do we have with the 3 grades operating on?
None,
Okay, so.
not a room.
Okay, yeah, because these are the things that I'm gonna need to know when we're moving forward with what we're doing with our facilities, because, and I think you're spot on. I think you're right. I think you're maxed out at that. I believe that building's like 48,000 or whatever it is. I believe it's in that vicinity. We have 3 grades in it and we are, so I just struggle to see how we would get a 3 grade scenario down to 40,000. It's just, I just don't.
I think that they'd have to do some creative things, which they always do, and they said that they are always able to do that if it was a renovate to new, but since, I don't know.
Yeah, one of the creative things I saw, and it looks like a bunch of the grades go down to an average of 4 classrooms per grade. So obviously, and I don't know what the Board of Ed does now for class size.
No, I mean, it would be, again, that would be
We had,
driven by an ed specs. That they would have to say, let's design this according to what the Board of Ed has approved, saying they need. And that would be based on our needs and based on our current class student to teacher ratio.
I used our ed spec that we currently have. And it showed, I believe, 2nd through either 1st through 5th or 2nd through 6th. Here it is. 21 classrooms for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So 4 grades, they have 21 classrooms. So that tells me we have 1 spare, and then every grade would have 4 teachers, no matter the class size. So
2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
21 classrooms, that's 5 plus a spare.
So grades 2,
3,
Three,
4, and 5, that's
four.
4 classrooms.
5.
But also, yeah, sorry, we started talking about the Gildersleeve list, so I guess my feeling is let's stick with one thing and
Sure.
get through it, is that all right?
Sounds great.
But only if Bob was ready to take us through it.
Yeah, I don't,
We-
I
We're gonna
agree.
have to go through it at some point.
So
Yeah.
you could go through it, everyone basically themselves, but I could just give you, let me tell you something, when it came to Gildersleeve, there's very little on my sheet that is cut out. Most of it's included, just because of the age of the school.
That one needed.
A whole different ballgame when
Yeah,
we did this release.
yeah, that one needed.
Okay,
Windows.
but- I could. Put you to sections that I eliminated that I thought that
Okay.
maybe would be okay if that's faster, because otherwise, if we go by line, it's just gonna. Take a while, so.
I mean, I think that's helpful if you have chunks of work that you feel could be addressed through capital down the road. You know, I think that works for me if it works for other people.
You have some of them red, Bob. Are those the ones that you changed, like, replace entire roof? 1.5.
So the reds are the ones that I kept.
Okay.
The blacks are the ones that were originally listed that I didn't either have enough data or information on and didn't include them and made a note of it. On what we were to do, so. Most important of this whole thing. Is the first group for cooling. Okay, these are basically numbers that are identifying some of the cooling that we have there. They use the word chiller, it could be a rooftop, we do have one for certain areas. I left that out because those don't apply. Because if we do new rooftops on that school, which we possibly can, because it's a flat roof situation, it's a single story. You can do that, we might have enough area to run ductwork in and your rooftops might be efficient, and or we look at individual split units. Okay, so to come up with a number, I really didn't have one, and now that I looked at this, I have a note on here that we need to kind of look at that to see, is that $1 million? Is that $500,000? You know what, there's no design for me to look at a number. No one's offered, Fryer has offered a number in his Renovate 2 for a system that's probably close to $2 million to cover the square footage of that building, but that one's kind of out of my. And I don't know how many HVAC companies I've asked, but at least 5, including the one we work with on a daily basis. It's incredibly difficult for them to give us a number, even a budgetary number, without looking at some type of spec sheet, conceptual drawing from either an engineer, even their engineers that they work with. But there's a fee to that. They can bring teams in and they can start designing stuff that they think would work for our school for capital improvements. We're gonna have to pay for it. And I didn't go there. Funding for it. So you'll look at replace, building wiring. There's numbers in there. I left that. I left out, so you got totals. You're not gonna be able to see it. Oh, did I? Yeah, I'm not sharing this. You can't. I just have to go through it. Upgrade all indoor lighting to LED. I left that out. We've already done that. Some of that we certainly can use. There might be some improvements that have to make, but I left that out. You'll jump down to classrooms and hallways. We definitely put in there. Add a generator. Just that is an option. The $90,000 generator unit would really just power the boilers. That's an estimate. It's very hard based on the kilowatts, because if we change the boilers over, they're high efficiency, they may need less kilowatts related to a generator. So that's kind of an expert of the electrical engineers that would be looking at the new boilers that we pick, but I left that in. A lot of these I didn't change, I just added saying, hey, you gotta put escalation on.
So that building, you anticipated keeping or putting a generator, is that the?
I left
30,000?
it in
Okay,
as a possibility. Yep,
okay.
I did.
And and once again, I mean, this is crazy that I'm even gonna ask you this, but out of the 591 wiring, obviously, you and I both know a bunch of that's gonna be for the AC.
It
Wow.
is.
I'm just,
New panels
we're
for
gonna,
those specific some of the stuff there is pretty good.
So I guess when we have Fryer figure out our reimbursement, we have to have him tell us how much of the wiring is needed for the HVAC, I guess, or whoever's gonna be doing that, right?
Yeah, and I don't know how that even works for the grant. That's a great question if they even accept that.
Well, you can't have it without it.
Right, but they might not look at, just like they look at what we feel like is a great classroom size. They don't.
Well, the only
You get
reason.
your
I bring
money
it-
back to 51%. You designed your school based on what they say.
Yeah, no, I talked to somebody in another town
Yeah.
that they were able to
So
get
they were able
some
to
of the
get it.
wiring in, so. And I don't know how you, like, there's gotta be a formula, that's my point, so, and I'm sure that's a Fryer, not us.
Bob, can I just ask to back up to the cooling? So you took out all of the numbers under cooling, but then you're factoring that in elsewhere under HVAC, or you're saying that that would need to be added
I
in?
think it needs to be added in. I have a question mark
Okay.
there, but as I walked down, I might have put it in another category, because the way this sightline report was done, it showed a lot of existing stuff, and then they threw some line items in that they wanted you to, I think, look at for like part of your, I mean, this is an old report.
Yeah.
And you do my best with what's here. So, and that's the other thing, it's very difficult to look at this and then figure out if there's something that's missed, that's critical. That's what I get really concerned about.
Well, that's what I was asking about
Yeah.
earlier, but when the sprinklers came up and the fire escape doors came up
Yeah,
during
there's
her
stuff in
walk,
there.
and I guess had it in my head, are there other things that
Mhm.
that may have a cost to them that might be a requirement or partially required? Even if we don't need to do sprinklers in the entire building, if we have to do some in part of the building, right? Are there other things that might not be on this list that we should be keeping in backs of our heads?
Well, that makes me think of when Eileen Monahan was here and she was like, Brownstone doesn't have telephones. They have no way to call.
Yeah.
These schools don't either. You have the,
No,
you know,
we have the old,
Renovate to new
The
has
speaker.
all that in because it's listed in a code.
Right.
That you have to follow when you're doing renovate to new, which is the way the state says you have to renovate your school to new. And when you look at that code book for how you build the school with their specs to get your funding, all of that is in there.
Which buildings do we have with phones?
high school, middle
high
school.
school.
That's no, I'm just.
Yep.
Just asking.
So you think about that 20-year, yeah, this is
Yeah.
it. So this is why the funding to replace this one, because it's the school that has it versus funding to install new. But the platform that we're hopefully changing over with capital will be the platform that we use for whatever we do moving down. Same thing with alarms, same thing with security, cameras, everything's gonna be on the same platform. There's gonna be duplication everywhere. So I've been working with trying to figure out who we would use to help us with that, to get some numbers for security. Some of the numbers that I put in recently are good numbers for security, but yeah. it's
I
just-
remember last time when we were
moving
looking
target.
at middle school, high school, sorry, I don't remember, but like we had talked about, or maybe it was Brownstone. That wasn't a technology line on here and like, the smart boards in my classroom right now. I mean, I used it when I was a baby teacher like 15 plus years ago, and so I'm guessing we wouldn't put that into either a renovate to new or a capital improvement plan. I would think that we would get new ones, maybe I'm wrong, but,
That is all included in a renovation new plan.
right, but.
It is.
Right, but it's not in the capital
Not in the capital.
plan.
But what you would have to hope in the capital plan is that you capture that in your classroom. Improvement line items, which are all listed on that page. They'll come up as a big group, which I included all of those. So you're hoping that your smart board, your desks, if they need to be changed, your lighting is good, that type of stuff, your connections, your fiber, where all those things would be included in that renovation to the classroom. But that's the scary thing. You can look at, everything's here. And then, you would ask this, the specialty Fryer, our consultant, it's like, I'm not quite sure what's in that report. It's not my report, but I'm assuming that there's enough in there based on what I looked at to maybe do some of those improvements. So
When we were standing out by the office in Ghostly, we were talking about the lack of a man trap and
Mhm.
security. Is that included anywhere in this and security upgrades, or is that another piece that's not here?
no, there's some, if I can get to that, it's just
Yeah.
hard for me down there. I
Sorry.
put some money in
Sure.
security and upgrade. So the difficult part of that is, what we design for so Gildersleeve, we can put a freestanding box in front of that school. So, you might be at $100,000 for that. And I think I might have put that in to upgrade There's, you know. Those, brownstone, if you wanted to expand it, that's a whole different ballgame. You know, you can't expand it into the staircase. You can only expand it out, so you would have to build something, maybe a facade out near the staircase there, or some entrance mudroom. You know, a boxed area in there, which you would need. So you'd be building on to the exterior brownstone to give yourself that spot.
Briar showed me where he could go in when we were there. On that main, with the main door we use now, the man trap.
The main, the little space that's there, you know,
He said
you
you
don't,
push that
if he could push it, yeah, he could push it.
and doesn't affect
It's
the
like
stairs.
about 8 feet to
Yeah.
get to the stair.
Yep.
Which is probably enough, because
Yep.
you don't have to occupy more than, I think, 3 or 4 people in
Yep.
the area.
But it is too small as it currently sits.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It does its trick,
Okay.
but it is, the tough part about that is it's a one area, you can definitely get visualized on a camera, you can buzz yourself in.
Right.
But it has an access down to the boiler room there too, and they want to keep all that separate, although
Right.
that's locked.
I was asking because I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't think we talked about it when we went through this list about the possibility of needing to expand the man trap. Is that something that's on?
Yeah, you know,
Radar?
that's part of the renovate
Right.
numbers inside that, you know, classrooms and hallways and interior doors, and that would be part of that, where that wall would be pushed in, you get a new interior door.
Hmm.
So, you know, you can add a million line items on here. I would have been here for months. I just worked off of this plan and I said, this is what I think based on what's written on here is needed. And we should escalate everything that doesn't have a current estimate to come up with a number. Can we miss a bunch by doing it this way? Yeah, we can. Yeah, I mean, you're pointing some things out now that, you know, could have been missed on one school but not the other.
All right, so we'll have to make sure that
Mhm.
as we keep going, that there is
Yeah, make it
funding
right
in there
too,
for the man
so.
trap.
So, yeah. So as we work down through the process, we put a placeholder in for, I left the placeholder. You're gonna see an area there that's a replacement of awning and a glass vestibule, okay? So I put a placeholder in there of $100,000. That's the glass vestibule. So see, you'll see down there. So I put just a placeholder. I don't know how many designs are in specs, but we gotta put through $100,000 because I kind of looked up some of those spaces that are offered and how they're priced that are out there that schools use. They're basically a drop-in unit. They really are.
It's the one that says removal of awning and
That is
replacement
correct.
with glass vestibule that was at 25. You put that up to 100?
Yep. Because that was just the awning on the front awning.
Yeah,
So that would basically come down and we put a box
okay.
there. $100,000's gonna do it. I don't know, but that's what I put there as a placeholder to make sure that security item was in my list. I put remove. You see the awning underneath? There's one on the side of the school. I just put a factor in there because I think theirs was, Carl, you laugh at that, but I don't know, it was a couple $100.
Which one are you talking about?
It's on the front of the gym, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking
it's,
about?
you don't really see
Facing
it.
Main Street.
Yeah, it's down the side of the building. That needs to come down. We don't need that. So I just put a $5,000 number in there to say, you know, pull it off the building and throw it away.
So instead of replacing it, you're just removing
No,
it.
it shouldn't be replaced. It should just be.
Okay.
It needs to come
So
down.
that 16,000 got reduced to 5,000 and you're just removing it.
But those are the little things that I played with as far as, yeah, we're not gonna use it. Let's remove it. Let's cut the cost.
Yeah.
Did you think about the repointing? Are you there yet or not?
Yeah, is that the next line item?
Roof number, a real roof number for that school?
The roof deck is there. It was priced at $50,000 during the back roof replacement. So that's in there, but I believe that will be covered. No, that's not. We gotta keep that there. That's chimney repairs. It'll have to be done prior to the roof. That's not included in the roof. Estimates that I got for Gildersleeve, which we'll talk about, you'll see that, but those, when we get down to that roof number, that's an actual number with reimbursement, 51%.
What about the repointing? 2 line items, 288.
The exterior stairs and stuff I have there, the repointing of exterior brick,
Yes.
I left them. There's I left one of them.
Okay, so you took 288 out? Okay, that's, I think, very,
Yep,
but I
left
want to
one.
point out what we're doing with Bob is ridiculous.
All right.
You're,
Just get through it quicker.
you're doing it.
So, yeah, I dropped one of those out, and I think we can do some really decent repointing for $250,000.
Yep.
Because depending on, and I really took a good walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
That chimney, Gilsey, gonna come down?
yeah, I left that in there to reduce it to a height as part of,
Like we would
separate
do,
of,
like we would do
yeah.
at Bellevue.
I left the 50,000 in there. You know, it's a lot different than Valley View.
Right.
Certainly much shorter, so I don't think
It's
it's gonna
still,
be,
it's still up there.
yeah, and it's in a better location, so you're rigging and your pickoff, but it's there. I left, replace some expansion tanks. So anything that we do down with boilers, we have all the expansion tanks and the steam controls and, whatever it is, external to the boiler still needs to be upgraded or replaced. So I left a lot of those items in there. You'll see replacement of 2 boilers. That's a current cost. Good estimate based on what we're doing at Brownstone. I put $250,000 in there. And then you're gonna see where I was talking about cooling. So we have some existing units that handle very small portions of the school. What they want to do is update and put money in here to update those existing systems to add cooling to them. They're too old. So I left them in there, so you can say that that's kind of part of, that would be, you can use that as part of whatever our air conditioning ideas would be for that school.
Am I in the right spot where you're close to duct cleaning? Is that coming up?
Yeah,
Are we taking that out? Saying that we're probably putting in new ductwork?
yeah, I don't think I took that out. That's a maintenance item.
But
We talked about that.
Laurel needs, if
Yeah,
she's,
I'm just trying to keep up with
I'm
you.
trying, yeah, I'm trying to
That's
help.
not my item. I can easily go where I took them out versus,
That helps because she's,
Yeah.
I think, doing a great job.
so the next Laurel that we drop down to for takeouts are, we start replace drop ceilings. Okay, and the reason why I took those out, and I took them all out, is because I don't know what we're gonna be doing with the AC. If we don't have to do a ton of work above those. And we do mini splits, or we do split systems that are coming in individually, a lot of that stuff's been replaced, those tiles and stuff, so the grid work is still pretty decent. We do have some other area that we might have to do, that might have hard ceilings, that we might have to look at, but I kind of took all those out,
You took out all the drop ceiling.
right down to 63,000, it's the last,
You took out the fixed ceiling as well.
I did.
Okay.
And then the next item is all the classrooms. I left all of those in.
And I think at that school you would have to, especially if we were adding
Yeah.
closets or any bathrooms or whatever. I don't think that's
Yeah.
unrealistic.
And,
So-
some of that could be where the classroom gets a little IT work, it gets some paint, and maybe it does get ceiling tiles, because we did some ductwork in there. So you're hoping that numbers in there where the escalations will cover that.
Weren't they talking about needing to widen the doors in those classrooms?
In several of them.
Yeah, so
Right.
according to Fryer, and hopefully I say this the right way. Every grade will need one classroom with an ADA accessible door.
Right.
We have some that might need it now, but we probably do not have all of them. He would have to make sure every grade had one, and then all specials have it. So was the way I understood it. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but it was something to that effect. So we will have to
You're
make
right.
sure,
You're pulling those out.
yeah, whatever it is. I don't
As
even.
well as the special ed room.
Yes,
and-
yep,
and
whatever,
the-
I
we
consider
did-
that a special. That's, I
Those-
consider that a special. yes,
These
yeah.
dollar costs.
The next line is interior doors.
Okay.
And,
the next-
yeah.
Yeah, so the doors are separate from that,
Gotcha,
so.
sorry.
So I left all the numbers in for interior doors as you work your way down, Laura, if you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm
I
trying.
also did replace carpet, which we probably won't do carpet, but we left those numbers in there to maybe add VCT or.
Well, that's just the library
Right.
too. That's just the
Right,
carpeting. in
that is the library carpet.
Yeah, which I imagine we'd be looking to keep carpeting in the
Yep.
library.
That stays. The VCT, which will be LBT, will be different now. I left all that in there because, we have some really bad laminate floor. And on that south side, Bartlett Street side. It's all gonna come up so we can seal that floor. And then decide what we wanna put down. And we really have to get the moisture out of that building. So I left all those in there. And do I have a quote to seal those floors or to go to that extent? No.
That's another one that
So
came
there's-
up, that
there's a
sealing, it
plus.
would cost to seal the floors, right? That's probably not represented at all. That we discussed during our walkthrough.
I have a note to that to myself too. But we know that Gildersleeve, I'm looking at this wood flooring. I took it out because I was thinking of a smaller area. But the gymnasium floor needs to be replaced.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were looking to refinish the gymnasium floor for $3,000. I left that in there, but I thought that might have been a smaller area because of the. Yeah.
Well, the
just
three,
square
I think,
footage.
Bob, if I'm reading it correctly, the 3,000 is laminate flooring in the nurses and principal office, and then the 31,000 is the quote for the gym floor.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Yes,
That's just to refinish it.
that's a
Yeah, but
refinish.
the offices in
Okay.
Gildersleeve were redone. And those floors
Those
were
floors are fine.
replaced when I was there.
Even
Those
with
were
all the
completely
water
redone.
that's been in
So-
there?
Huh?
Even with all the water that's been in there?
Once.
I would throw it
Yeah, but that floor is the way that was glued to the sealed and glued. There was no issues. We were able to suck it right up. No moisture
She
issue
got
there.
flooded out.
Yeah, we had a roof.
Pipe.
We had a roof.
Oh,
Yeah, Fernco failed on the roof. Great. Definitely drain your roof into a closet, down through a closet. Best thing you could ever. do.
And so the reason I was asking about the 31,000, sorry.
In Great Britain, is that called a water closet?
Water closet. It was one, yeah, that's, but the
That-
floor's good.
That 31,000 for refinishing the gym floor. When we talked about the gym floor during the walkthrough, and you showed us the area where it flooded and buckled, does that 31,000 cut it for refinishing that floor, or is that floor need to be replaced? Like, how,
Floor
what are
needs to
we
be
talking about?
replaced.
Floor needs to be replaced. So did you update that number, or is that elsewhere?
no, that would be just
No.
finishing it.
I mean, we can probably, we had an estimate. When we were gonna go through insurance. They didn't agree to replacement, so we ended up doing the repair. And you're looking at probably close to $150,000 for that size of a gym.
To replace it.
Yeah, if we were to do any changes to make that gym a little different based on our usage, then we would certainly. So I am not in favor of a wood floor. Especially there. Because of moisture. So if I was to take that, I would recommend if we did redo that floor, that we would take it up, seal the floor and put a rubber down.
What would the cost difference be between rubber and wood? Are they about equal or?
You don't know. All I know is that I know the maintenance on like the high school gym floors are about 25,000.
Is that one elevated with that?
It is. They
That's
make,
elevated on the
they
track
make a little
system.
elevated track
Probably.
system.
Doesn't
And
that
so
help
is
with
it- so is
the
it
moisture or
the
no?
front,
Or does it make it worse when water traps on?
No, it's better to have it elevated. That's the only way they'll build them today.
Okay.
Because this gym up here, back in the day, before it was a rubber floor, used to buckle.
But it didn't work.
Didn't work. So that's why they went to the rubber floor back in the.
You saw the spot. It was
Yeah.
pretty bad.
You guys did a great job fixing it.
Yeah,
Give you
but
that.
no, and you still see the separations.
Yeah.
Because the old wood separates. You. Some people say that's great because it doesn't affect anything, but yeah, that gym floor is definitely.
So if I heard you right, the insurance is taking care of that. They're gonna make it functional now or no?
We made it. Functional. That was the
Okay.
big white spot you saw.
You remember the discoloration? That was,
yes.
that was the fix that they did.
Did insurance cover that or not? You
Yeah.
said, okay.
We were very lucky there. We had a small deductible. but
Okay.
That's the rule.
I asked Mike while we were there that thing because
Mhm.
it's been an issue since day one. I don't know, I think we knew that right, but, what would it take to put bleachers in that gym? Not big high bleachers, but to push the south side wall up, which is Bartlett Street side. He looked at it structurally, the steel, everything's in place. He was gonna put a number together for us, so maybe go with a row of bleachers that are 3 foot high.
And-
Because parents can't have, park, and that's really probably not as much for the school thing as it is for Park and Rec, because parents can't be in there when there's a game. And it doesn't, never made any sense from day one.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
there,
And-
the second piece of this that was important that he noted was that not only could we, I think he said it would be pretty affordable because gym space is pretty affordable square footage wise, but you can pump out that wall, far side wall between the.
Between the steel
right?
pillars and the steel
And
going across.
for a little like two for one, you could address some of the drainage issues back there at the same time that you were pushing that out. And so he thought that that would be a very affordable solution to make that gym space usable for games and stuff on the weekends and to create or to fix some of the drainage problems.
It wouldn't be bleachers like you see in this gym here. It would just be
Kind of like Brownsville.
similar, maybe even smaller than that. And it would be a shed roof type thing off of the back. We wouldn't go all the way up to the top with it. Because when you guys were looking at that, I asked them to go outside. We looked at the structural inside. He said, this is not a big deal. We'd only put them from like half court, X amount of feet each way. But that gym,
It's not even really used for games. I mean, for the.
no, but it could, but it could.
But then it could.
And
Exactly,
talking
if
of
we're gonna close the
eliminating a school
that would make no
possibly,
sense.
Right.
it's something to be thought about for Park and Rec. And even if the school had a function, they can use the bleachers for something.
Yeah.
You know, I just think, maybe it's not even feasible in a price. But I just asked Mike if he could look at that and put a number with that.
I think under the way I see it is if it was a renovate, it's probably not the end of the world at Gildersleeve. Because you're increasing the square footage and clearly we have too much. They wanted to take off close to 8,000, I believe. So if it's just a renovate and that building wasn't a renovate to new, then I believe it's less of a problem. But if you were trying to add the bleachers and add square footage when we're removing potentially, I think that's when it would become an issue. So, but you follow me, Carl? If it,
I do, but that has a different adjustment in reimbursement, doesn't it?
no,
Gym area does not.
no, it's,
I
That
don't
counts
think
as
so.
the square
It's all
footage.
Yes.
footage.
First.
yes, yeah.
I thought it was. different.
But
But
under
definitely worth
renovate,
getting a quote to see what it would cost us and to
Sure.
see.
That's
you know,
what, I asked Mike to figure that out.
And if it can help the drainage at the same,
Right,
at the
and
same time.
There's good drainage
Could be
back there. I just
money
think
well
it's,
and depending on which grades we put it, what buildings are potentially, that would affect gym size too.
again, my thought was more on the after school weekend use.
Yeah.
For recreation.
That gym should have had bleachers.
I've said it from day one. Paul Bankston said it from day one. I mean, Paul used to, whatever. He fought that battle and lost it. He was.
Yep.
He
It
won.
would benefit a lot of people.
Absolutely. The town is,
It would be beneficial for the
benefits the
community.
town as well.
So is that a note we're gonna have Fryer?
He's gonna look into that for me. Him and I walked inside and
Yep.
when you guys were all in
Yep.
there. I took him outside. We looked at the back.
Yep.
I think we're okay with zoning there, which we're kind of
We're exempt.
somewhat exempt from zoning anyway, so. I don't think to bump that wall out 12 feet in a piece of it is that big of a deal.
How much flat area did you, I didn't walk outside with you guys. How much room did you have between that and the toe of the hill?
Probably got, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good. I think we're doing it. We weren't even gonna get into the drainage that's there. Cause that's all full catch basins back there and, bright concrete pipe, the whole 9 yards.
All right. So Bob, I'm updating the 31,000 number to 150 to
That's
ish.
a good number, thank
Okay.
you. Good
Is
number
that-
today,
Is that floor
placement,
still, pretend numbers get tight?
placeholder.
Yeah, but pretend numbers get tight and we don't add the bleachers and it becomes a different grades, blah, blah, blah. Is that gym floor okay for a while? I'm just looking at it clearly from, if the insurance company's signing off on it at the end.
Yeah, with no, they signed off on it for, usage and replacement.
Okay.
If they were to come in and do an inspection, I don't know what they would say, but you could see when we were there that there's other areas that have started to
Okay.
release, it releases from the glue. Just from the placement of the new stuff that we put in there, you can see that's nice and tight and then everything around
Yeah.
it's got little gaps in
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
That was very visible.
So you already had 31 for the floor there and then things like if we got rid of the generator, another 30, we could potentially get back that 150. It sounds like I'm looking at things that, wants and needs, and Bob, and I think you're doing a great job. I'm just in my head trying to see where we shift to keep us close to your original, get back to your original, close to it.
So we jumped down to, I'm sorry,
We already have classrooms.
doesn't, it's just an update, so that would have to be selected. It's just a generic classroom furniture.
I just don't understand what $7,000 gets you. Is that what you're
That's what I
talking?
mean.
Not much.
49 per.
Not much.
Two chairs on the desk.
Yeah,
Chairs are $48 each. Desks, depending on what you're doing.
oh, so they're talking
size.
about, okay, so I take it back. That $7,000 is for wooden chairs in the library. That's what that's what the notes say, wooden chairs in the library.
Oh, the classroom furniture, see, so classroom renovation, so yeah, they just did furnishing and finishes. And you extended that out, it was library,
Just that one.
Yeah, that's where it says,
those few push in.
it
chairs
says
like
wooden
this.
chair in the library, replace classroom furniture per student. So it's 49 wooden chairs for the library.
Yeah, 49 per position. So I didn't leave that in there,
Okay.
obviously. Um. And as you go down that list, I made myself a note that we needed to talk about that. I'm not sure countertop or cabinets, countertops that are in individual classrooms, tiles on the wall. All of that stuff I did not include because are you leaving it or are you renovating classrooms? And to what extent are you renovating?
And don't forget, you did leave money in the renovate the classrooms, and maybe that is the
That's
countertop.
all in there. Well, they separated, so
Well, they added to it, I would say. They have different line items, bringing the
separated
number.
it from up there.
Well,
Yeah.
let's be clear, those weren't those were not cabinets and countertops in classrooms. Those are in like, it says nurse's office
spaces,
and
yep.
library.
You have a better list that you can,
I'm looking at the
Just-
same list, I just have the columns expanded.
Yeah,
yeah.
the
well,
column is like this.
My list
long.
doesn't have your expanded columns, so
I have my
you're
laptop.
helping
Yeah, it's
tremendously.
so like the $2,000 is built-in cabinets, 5 feet and 5 white columns in the room is what it says in the library. That was $2,000, 3,000 for the office and nurse's office and principal. So you're saying you're taking out all of that.
So where's the nurse, so here's the thing, nurse's office gonna stay in the same place, does it
Right.
need a counter?
Right.
Do we need a new one where they are they moving? I
Right.
just, put a note that. Without any design, all they're doing on this report is saying there's a counter,
Replace it.
there's 49 chairs.
Right.
There's
And they weren't
19
in there when we did this report.
It's an inventory
because
report.
Yeah.
After that, after COVID, we redid the room that she's in now.
Right, she got moved, yeah.
And there was a sink in there, we put a new sink in there, and we also put some cabinets in there, so she had places to lock and store stuff.
Right.
And made it, she's in a much bigger space than she used to be,
And,
but
and
that was done after. This,
Yes.
So-
She's in a full classroom now.
yeah, she is.
You can take that 13, this is what I did with some of them and trying to combine them. When you take one out, you
Yeah,
can take that $13,000 number in the middle there
yeah.
and add that. To cover some of that cost.
So leave 13,000 to take the others out.
and don't forget, like
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
don't forget the 7,000 that we agreed to take out for the library chairs. That was under an
Mm-hmm.
X. That's 10, 12 years out anyway. We already left some VCT tile in at 8,000, a couple line
Mhm.
items up. That was 10, 12 years out. So there's give and take on this list. I don't believe we're robbing it blind by any means.
Yeah, there's tile on the walls and it's depending on like those rooms, it's small areas.
Yeah.
And if it's not damaged or whatever, it may be fine. If the entire space changes, that's a good story.
So leave the 13, take out the others.
Yeah, that just gives you a benchmark. Sometimes you can type it right in, say benchmark, or I've done that, just to leave something there. To say that, we may have to do something we don't know yet.
They leave the 13 or take out?
No, leave the.
No, I took
13.
everything, but put it back in. So we read the 13 in the center to give us some of the 7, the 2, the 3, the 1,
Yep.
Give yourself a value,
Okay.
like when we were repointing the building, I left 1.
Right.
To cover 50% of what they noted based on numbers of bricks. They look at square footage and say you have to repoint a certain percentage of it. That's how they probably came up with that.
So under, let's see, I'm under, yep.
So kitchen equipment, as we spoke before, we are usually able to get quick kitchen equipment. We've done some updates already.
at Gildersleeve. We get them through a grant through our food. Definitely do that, but I just tell her what we need. So I just remove those because we continue to upgrade that. That would be your serving stations, your refrigerators. The only big thing that would change that we have to remember, if we continue to do what we're doing and we cook primarily here and we bring that there to serve, then they're warming rooms and they don't need huge expansions or changes.
Right.
The minute you change that, you're into hood systems, you're into hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Full fire support.
Yep.
And one of those three items was an X and, you know.
But
Yep.
But those, I mean, it's currently working to cook here and transport to the elementary school.
You
You're
don't
not
have any
making a
plans on
recommendation
changing
that we
that,
try
right,
and
Charles?
change that.
Plans
Yeah.
to change that.
Okay.
Great.
It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. We do a 3 mile loop a day, if that.
Yep.
It works out good.
Keep the stress down.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, moving right along, renovate bathrooms.
Yeah, so I left them all in there. We don't know what we're gonna do to them. We probably are gonna need to add, if we decide to change out those areas. And add bathrooms to classrooms, depending on what the
Right.
scope of the work is for how we're gonna use the building. We probably should have it. So I just left all that.
Yep, and
That category right there is quite a bit of money.
it, yeah, and I believe,
Adds
what,
up pretty fast, like 300, 245,000.
but yeah, but I believe, depending if you're gonna put 7 but what's the program that operates out there that I saw at one of the board that needed a bathroom in their room? One of the programs that's operating out of there, it's not Bridge.
Rise.
Rise.
Okay,
Rise.
yeah, so obviously whatever programs or whatever grades go into these buildings, there may be additional bathrooms needed in classrooms for specialty rooms, so I like leaving that alone.
It all has to be in there, because you've all seen the bathrooms there.
Yeah,
They need to be
and
completely updated.
we, like you said, we don't know if something gets shifted,
Yeah.
we may need funds, so I'm not causing trouble on that line.
Yeah, so we jumped down to drinking fountains. I left that out at every school because we usually do our own.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, the boiler.
a lot of those have been changed out, replaced. Did I miss something? Josh?
Can we?
Oh, yeah, hot water heater.
The generator, no, sorry, what am I looking at?
Boiler.
Building boiler, storage, hot water
Yeah,
heater.
those are all your storage for domestic water, hot
Mhm.
water and stuff. Those have to be replaced.
So you're keeping those 3 items?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep, sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
jumped right down that list and went down to, I stopped my red at hot water heater.
There's only one of us making an accurate list over here on a computer, so let's make sure we,
Yeah, thank you for that.
make sure we are allowed.
Back to me.
So we're eliminating the drinking fountains.
A lot of those haven't been replaced.
Well, they put $1,000, a lot of them have, they put $1,000 in,
Which one? do I-
which depending
No,
on,
because the state during COVID came out,
Right.
wanted
you did a lot.
a documentation on they wanted to replace
Touchless.
they wanted the touchless ones, right? So they wanted a list from every school system in Connecticut, because they were gonna replace them, and they wanted to know exactly what you had, what I did, and did them the inventory and sent them. They never heard back on that one. And I don't think anybody else did either.
They probably, I didn't have any. You have that many drinking fountains? I'm looking at this list. That's crazy. So,
It's crazy, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
And they want, if you look at the new style ones that are in here, that's what they want. Those things are,
expensive.
and they're finicky sometimes. Circuit board's gotta be replaced. And I don't know if you're gonna have
Filter
problems. I
light
had
goes on
problems.
every cup of water.
No. Wait, so we're removing this, but are you adding, do we need to add in other money for fountains or are we?
So you have a choice. What you can do is you can, I didn't add, I made a note. To self saying that, do we want to put a caveat in there of, $5,000 to $10,000 to replace or add some that we might need, but again. You change any configuration in there, you might say, well, we just changed it, we got different, we're gonna need a water fountain over here that we don't have. If we have water supply. So I think those would stay in the same places because they're just.
yeah, and keep in mind, we're looking at this list as though it's going to be a renovate list. I'm not saying this building's not a renovate to new, but if we were to operate under this list, we're assuming it's a renovate. So I think you're right.
Yeah, and I replace those stations as part of my maintenance budget. Because it's an ongoing type of thing.
Sure.
So I kind of looked at it that
I
way.
just like, just as a teacher being in that building, I noticed that there was only, going up to mechanical again, there's one residential refrigerator, but we have like 50 staff members and that refrigerator every single day is jammed. So I feel like,
Yeah, but that's a budget.
I know,
That's
but
it.
I'm just
So
saying,
that- you're
like,
absolutely
that
right.
could be,
But I wouldn't put it into.
you
this
wouldn't
one.
put it in there.
But that
Okay.
would be something that we buy from the school through.
Okay,
A vendor, local vendor might
Okay.
replace them
that's
here,
just
I
something that, like,
think.
I was just looking at, like.
You're not gonna get
shredded
into a
jams every
commercial,
day.
you're not
Yeah,
gonna
get
get
rid of
into
that
a
coke.
commercial stainless steel.
No, you
reason
can,
for that.
you can do two,
Right.
you know.
Scratch it
well,
down,
you
fill
can
right
do
top of
10
the street, they'll
residential,
deliver
price
it,
of
you're
one.
all set. And they will.
Well,
Yeah, you should. Local.
But good point. Yeah, like-
What are you doing with the touch-free sinks, Bob? Did I miss that?
So that's all part of, the touch-free. Hate those more than anything in the world. They cost us so much money every day to repair and fix.
Are they code?
Like jet.
So I left them all in there. That doesn't mean that they're gonna be touch-free.
Right.
But it means that we have to replace the fixtures with the, they broke it out. So there's a lot of touch-free in many, many places. If she was to expand that, I don't know if it's all faucets and sinks and whatever. So I left that in there because we know we're gonna have to do some work. Fixture wise.
Mhm.
So we need to put money in there.
Is it code to have touch-free, Bob? I don't know. I, that's not something I would, and if you don't know, that's just.
I would wonder if it is when you're.
Some of the
Yeah, I
ADA
don't know.
areas that you would have in a bathroom, which would be a lower sink and be able to pull up. The push down ones have to, so it's all pounds per square inch. It's like a push for the door. So, no, they might have to be a push down though, but I'm not sure about touch.
I don't.
I'll tell you though, I run camp up here,
Great, but they run
like
out.
the little guys, I have the little guys up here for camp. And they can't use these touch-free ones up here. They, honestly, they are jet propelled. They are soaking wet by the time they're done. And half of them are terrified of it. So if it's anything, you know,
They're
if
also
we're
like too
thinking.
tall for those kids.
Yeah,
Well, no, we.
they're in the
but, you know,
splash zone. Their faces at the bowl.
Stool.
at school, we're very safe about it, but it's. I could see it being a big problem for the younger grades. But I could see a lot of them not wanting to wash their hands because of how those work. Just when you're thinking about it.
Good answer.
So you have, on a regular faucet, you have a shut off for both hot and cold. These have a servo valve. And then they have a temperature reducer or whatever. They have all that first. Okay, and then they have a control module that senses your touch. All that fails all the time. We have a lot of calcium in our water here and stuff. So those small valve mechanisms and servos, we're on them every day. We just replaced the entire middle school boys bathroom with push downs. We had them on the shelf. I said, put them in. I don't care what you have to do, retro the sinks. We drilled holes, we retroed them, they're perfect. But because we were spending so much money.
Yeah.
On the sensors. And the last thing you want to do is the last guy in washes his hands. We leave. We try to check all the bathrooms. That's night. The thing turns on, it runs Friday, Saturday,
Right.
Sunday. That's why there's drainage below the bathroom.
But that said, we're not committing ourselves to touch.
No.
We're
No.
just keeping that money in there
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
some faucets.
I left it as a
and/or codes
placeholder.
Need to be updated.
So I left all of that.
Okay.
As you work your way down through the sinks, toilets, shop sink, all that price all the way down until I got to replace backflow prevention or all in for me.
Okay.
Okay. Backflow prevention, we do those on an ongoing basis. That shouldn't be a capital and or maybe a new project.
Come on, work with me on the next one.
So here we go. So I have no idea. I put unknown. I can't see pipes under the ground or in closets that might be in sewer or related. So I left those numbers in there as a placeholder for us to have to do a whole bunch of different plumbing. Either for the boiler system, either for drainage for HVAC, stuff like that. I just left those in there. Because when we get into that, that's big.
That line item, originally.
Those items are big money.
$1 million. More than
More than
one to one.
Is there a lot of asbestos in there?
Yeah. Yeah, you're walking on some of it. Most of it's in elbows and T's,
Yeah.
but there is some areas that are in still good shape that we just haven't abated yet.
So that's that $500,000 there.
Yep,
And
and that was just based on the estimate that we had.
Right.
And
I
I'll
haven't
be,
changed it.
I'll be the cheerleader that we run safe schools. That's not in any places
So
that.
I didn't change that
close to
number.
children.
You know, Chris would know more about it, but based on what's there, I didn't change that number at all from 5 years ago. That was their estimate to a percent square footage of what's there.
Is there,
Bid,
is there a
well,
report with what's in the school?
We just did our 5 years, so that was done last year, so all that stuff is remaining. That report's available. I can give it to anybody to take a peek at for all the schools that we test.
So
I like to look at it, 'cause I think the only thing I've seen is just some inspections, not the full
I
report.
think most of the money is in the labor for all the elbows and the pipe insulation, and stuff you can't see that's above the ceiling tiles and things like that.
So Bob, I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on the 700 and the 500, so 1,200,000 on the drainage. I understand we might be moving a few bathrooms. That's what you think it's.
That's got potential to be removed, but not all of it.
No, yeah, I'll just say it. I would think we could lower that to maybe 750 at this point. That's what I'm
So
looking
it's
for.
important to realize that people say drainage, you know, oh, that's the sewer pipe, that's fine. But it's how we're connecting new bathrooms to that. So
Yeah.
there's gotta be money in there. There's gonna be work to be done to
Yep.
get to existing closet spaces and areas for, you know, toilets especially. Drain piping for sinks and stuff is probably pretty good, but I don't know, it's in the walls.
Right.
You know, you take a sink off and you go to connect and it might need to be replaced and you might have to do some work to get down to the next good joint.
Yep.
So for me, I was like, that's gotta stay for now. But potential
Okay,
savings in the future when you start
Right.
looking at it,
right. You got
How
a
you
million.
ever-
yeah.
estimate that. So you'll see where we get down to smoke stuff now and it's fire. So we did,
Oh, sorry, pause. Did you keep the wheelchair lifts or remove that
I removed
10,000? You removed the 10,000?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure, but
Don't apologize.
one near the
The
gym,
stage.
The stage,
The little
I
stage.
replaced that.
they're all good. That's gonna be compliant for a while, especially based on usage. Thank
Ground
God.
floor was not replaced. that.
No, it's always good not to ever use them. As far as I'm concerned. There's no real need to. So I did leave that, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay.
I mean, I took that out.
You took it out.
Yeah. Because Carl did that.
Fire panels, 85.
So I took out all that. We replaced the fire panel. We also replaced all the upgrade smoke detectors. We completed that in 2003, including pool stations and all our strobes. You guys all saw that. We had a really good deal. Really good. So we were able to do that. And then right after that, I did all the LED safety lighting because stuff was just failing. So we were able to get great rebates right off the bat, 50% off the fixtures. We put them in, saved a ton of money. So that stuff. If they had to be moved, we'd move them, but what I did do is leave in there. I don't know, you know, like we talked about. Fire suppression, what's needed for the building, what can we get by with, what do we want? And what is that gonna cost?
Wait, where are you under with that? comment?
So we went down through the panel. The next one is upgrade smoke detectors. We've done that, took that out. The next one is, oh no, security, as you get down there.
So there is no line for sprinkler. I mean, what you were just talking about, right? Fire
Yeah,
suppression.
right.
So do we need
I
to
did
add a
those on the
line?
Other schools. Yeah, let's, no, I put it in. Oh, so this is what I did. I made myself a note under the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
said, question code
Right,
for suppression,
whether we need it or not.
right?
Yeah.
And
and
when
I-
you get into suppression and you don't have it, you're running a lot of black pipe.
Right.
In the ceilings, your ceilings now have to be done. You're dropping, there's a
And
lot of work.
I think more importantly, one of the things Fryer pointed out was,
Yeah, half a
at
million
least in the
easy.
walkthrough, was you need a separate lateral from the street. The,
Yeah, you have to isolate it from your domestic water,
Yeah.
which is great that you have it, has to be separated from your fire system.
and what he said on the walkthrough was a new trunk line from the street, which I'm sure he knows. So if we do have to go into sprinklers for those buildings.
Right, and if it doesn't have enough pressure, then we have to put a pump system.
Yeah,
Yep.
which we're fine down.
Yeah.
Too much.
Should.
So we're just leaving a big old question mark there. We're not adding a placeholder.
It's a 500, if not more.
Yeah, if it was a split, like you
It
were
would be
saying,
separate off the main or separate.
he said off the street,
Off the street, Bob.
he didn't even want.
I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe it has to have its own water main coming in to feed that.
It's off the main.
Yeah, I own
All the
one.
way out to
It's
the
off the
next
main.
bit.
It's from the street.
That's,
Yeah.
that'll be big service coming in too.
Yeah, I own one building with a sprinkler
Yeah,
system and it has
that's
its own 5 or 6 water
That's a long
feed.
The only thing that confuses me
Yeah,
on
no matter
that
which
is
way you
this
come in.
building right
Yeah.
here,
I didn't remember that code.
right? It's the only thing that confuses me, because we just have one water main coming in
Well, this,
here.
yeah, you're
to the back.
separated completely because you have your own water main, which is $2 million, 2 million gallons. Your suppression system is on tanks only,
Correct. Correct.
separate water
I didn't
main
think
from
about
the
that.
tanks. So we draw from the tank with an engine, we pressurize it. We
Right.
pressurize and the pump in the pump room, separate main to the 1 million gallon tank,
Right.
separate.
Okay,
So that's like a separate main.
it is.
That's the only
Yeah.
water source, so, yes, but your hydrants in here around your perimeter have to be pumped by a fire truck from that tank. We
Well,
have to,
7 pounds of street pressure.
we have to hit a hydrant to pressurize the hydrants to use. We have to hit a hydrant to pressurize the existing fire system here at a standpipe. So the evolution for a fire here is a lot of firefighters and a lot of fire trucks just to keep water flowing. We practice every year. We'll be up probably 2 weeks to flow water. We flow this hydrant system here to keep it clean and to practice.
Thank all the volunteers for lucky.
Yeah. Fun.
Just show the
Nothing breaks.
irrigation.
So just so I'm clear. Am I adding a figure for the for sprinklers, or am I not adding?
How
a
can
figure
we?
for
We
sprinklers?
really can't, right, Bob? I
You
mean,
put a
that's a
placeholder
number.
of 500. Like 500, I mean, from Main Street here.
I wouldn't-
Main Street, yeah.
I wouldn't want to speculate at this
Could
much,
you
just
cut
because
the
what if we,
pathway off of Barton?
Pryor wasn't convinced Wilson needed a system. He did want to do a little homework, and I believe we should just let him do that before we speculate. We can put a question mark. or-
I'll make it red.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would definitely make it a question.
Because I believe we have a lot of money left over in the drainage, but whatever.
Put it under
Maybe not.
distribution.
Yeah, add that, yeah, throw that in the plumbing line item for my million too.
Well, there you go. That's a big number, which could, we could be up right there. We could be at a 14-15 million dollar restoration.
He, when we were out there, he did say to do the whole school and sprinkler, I won't quote him, was somewhere around $1 million.
I couldn't remember if he said that at Gildersleeve or at Valley View.
We
He
were
said
at
Valley
Valley
View,
View,
right?
but he referenced in building.
About $1 million.
Yeah, about
For
$1
a
million.
sprinkler system.
Yeah.
I remember him saying that.
And I
as
thought
well.
We got
Okay.
into
Yeah,
it again.
yeah.
from
Yeah.
Gilbert.
Yes, and they're both about the same distance from the street to get
Right,
into the
right.
building, blah, blah, blah. So
Okay.
it would be similar if you had to do everything, but he wasn't convinced. And I don't want to speak for anybody, but I don't believe they were convinced that we need it. So I'm not sure we're in violation not having.
And crumble. Well, even if you did just the hallways, like Bob was saying.
No, just
you
trying to
still
think of
gotta
water
bring
mains
the
that way,
main.
because that's what you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even if you're partial, if you're only doing sprinklers in portions of the building.
And you gotta think of that, if you're getting into that. If you're 3/4 of the way, you'd like to do.
Right. And if the big cost is.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't disagree with that.
You know, you're bringing
Yeah,
the water main
it's
in
not-
from Main Street, you're bringing it in the building to just
Oh, no. you
put
do
fire
that.
suppression in the hallways, that's
Could
ridiculous.
you
I mean,
catch
you
it
might
off
as well
of
go
Kristen?
into the rest of the building.
Yeah,
and
you're
just
talking a
leave it.
couple
You-
little lines
You'd
off the
have to
side.
look at that elevation as well, but Kristen Drive is a way back in, they can come up that way, which is, that's fantastic, but you're not tying into Main Street.
Yeah,
That
Right.
permitting,
It's a long way.
that permitting.
I wasn't worried about the permit. I was worried about the pipe. How's it?
And
Look at that
main
section.
Is on the other side. That main runs right up the north,
On a church side.
so the west side.
Mm.
Yep. Because I have fixed many of them.
That section's newer than, where's the really old, towards the bridge, right?
That's all over, all the way up. It's all, nothing's,
Okay.
all the way down,
Just-
except the pieces that we put in.
It's under a concrete road.
Yeah.
So we're up to security.
So security, I left so you go all the way down the bottom.
Mhm.
And, I left how did I do that? Right, so I was a little wrong on my number, $75,000 in there, but I put it in my wrong line item. So, we need 75. What I did was I dropped it in the exterior lighting, building parking lots and stuff, which I took out of there because we're probably gonna end up replacing those way ahead of any work on the building.
So
Sorry, so you're eliminating.
So we
outdoor
need
lighting.
75,000 there, so drop it in one of those line items.
Only 75? Because I'm totaling security updates upgrades here and it looks like 458.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, wait a minute, Bob.
It's not.
If we're doing
It's
that,
not though, okay.
if we're doing that with security, would we be putting in, or is that under our
I already did that.
system for like to have phones in each classroom? You know, I mean, you gotta think about that. You know, if we're gonna get into this.
Well, they got radios, so
Okay.
that's one thing,
I mean,
but they
if
do
you're
need
doing-
phones, and like you said, there's not a telecommunication line item in here. You know, did they rope it into that and I missed that because it's not identified?
It's actually not identified at all. It
It is-
literally just
the
says
security.
security upgrade
Yeah,
8
so
times
It
over.
really doesn't make any
It's a
sense.
confidential one of these. that have
Seven.
it broken out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It really, school security should never be discussed.
If you put the telephones in the room,
Yeah,
you
no,
still need
not-
an
not
intercom
referring to it,
system
but if
because
you
the
get into
intercom
details,
system.
So this is what the
Also needs to be
$75,000 will
replaced.
do, not telephones or anything, $75,000 will do the cameras, exterior, interior that I think that we need, and the entries. That's it.
That's it.
So that's, and
And the
other
man,
than,
the man traps and the
yeah,
other.
the man trap is
Okay.
separate, we put that in.
All right,
And then I look at fire suppression and everything totally separate of that.
right, understood.
So I don't really think there's anything I missed.
Would you be okay if we put like 50,000 for the phones or something? I don't even know. if
So
that's
the
a
high
good
school
place
here is
to-
90,
Okay, and is it based on square footage or number of rooms?
Probably number.
number of rooms and number of devices, so
Okay.
a lot less. So if you put $50,000 in for upgraded phone system, you're probably good.
'Cause that
We work
was
off
one-
The same platform.
I'm hearing
You
a
don't-
theme.
you
That's
don't
something.
want people talking on radios
Right.
if you have a situation.
No, I'm not arguing this.
I know you're not, I know, I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah, we
don't-
can't
you
do
don't
anything.
want
We
that.
need phones in classrooms.
If it's 50, that's my
Intercom
point.
systems are
If,
for announcer.
if this is a recommendation that we should be going towards, I don't have an issue with it,
What
but
do
I
you
would
think?
like to make sure we have a line item to cover it. That's all.
Yeah.
So I would like to add that under security because I believe that's a good
Yeah.
place to
How
put
do you
it.
get there?
So you're including like a general
Yeah,
75.
cameras, door access and stuff covered. How do you get there? More than that. Security. Phone,
I'm just saying,
put 50 in for phones.
phones,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah.
Because right, Bob, you talk, okay.
Yep.
We got a situation, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can put $150,000 for security, which includes phone system and
150 for
For
well,
everything,
50 for the phones and 75 for security.
that's
I think
125.
that's
one
pretty good.
forty-five.
You-
Okay.
You're good at 125 or?
What about the intercom system? Is that anywhere in
That-
here? Like,
that-
That'd be over your phones now.
It would be, we don't
That-
need intercoms at all. I mean,
I believe the phone will do that and I don't want to speak
No,
to it.
you're
but I
not gonna
think
be
they
pushing a
could.
button in
I
an
think
office
it's
and
capable.
all
Very well.
okay.
They're gonna be calling you on the phone.
But what about when they make a general announcement to
Yeah.
the building?
So those can be done from the phones too, which are connected to speakers. So that system will have that as well.
So we don't.
Okay.
it would
Yeah, that's
eliminate the
how we
need.
do it here. We'll pick a
Yeah.
phone. Yeah,
I've got 75 for general safety estimate
50.
and then 50 for the phone system.
And it was like 450-ish.
And it
right?
was 458.
Yep. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And thank you again, Bob. You're doing a great job.
we're getting there. I mean, you know, our numbers are definitely going up because there's a lot of stuff. This is helpful for me too. You look at this, you don't know.
Yeah.
But you forget here and there until you walk through. So
I think it's helpful in general though.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful for everybody who goes back and listens and says, that makes sense, all the costs
Oh,
are
yeah.
paid. Telephones, and this is what it costs to wire them.
Absolutely. Today's day and age, that needs to be there.
Right, it needs to be, yeah, because even, Jen will tell you too, when they call down for a student, or they'll be like, Miss Martinez, can you please come to the office, or can you? Where she has to leave her classroom and then find someone to cover them, where if she were able to pick up the phone and have that conversation privately, because she can't now because it's. It's.
they do pick their phone ups. There's a lot of phones here that open up to speaker when you're teaching and they'll just say, pick up.
Right.
Just pick up and I go over and pick up.
Yeah.
So you can set them that way. You can set them
We
to
have to
ring.
block some of them in physical because they're so loud and alarming to some of the friends who struggle with loud noises. It's jolting to them, and you can't block them, but you have to be aware when it's on the ones that are there now.
And do we need to add a line item for any sort of technology that needs to be included?
We talked about that. I kind of added that, these classroom restorations, depending on what you're gonna actually do to them, you hope there's this smart board. Most of it's about what you want for technology.
Right.
I mean, what are you using for that age group? You'll have internet wiring, you'll have smart boards if you're gonna even use those again. Or you're just gonna go to a live projector, you're just gonna go right off your laptops or whatever you're using.
Up here, we're transitioning away from smart boards, I think,
Right, but I mean, all that just,
but younger, I think they're very adequate.
And I think,
Not too much, though. That's the thing. Those have stayed pretty
I mean, I use my smart
consistent
board
with cost.
every single
Yep.
day.
Yeah, you're,
So-
those age groups definitely, I get it.
Yeah.
and I think Laurel could probably explain it better being the chairwoman of
But great question because you don't know.
the Board of Education. I'm sure we're in some sort of rotation for,
I mean, you know,
because that wouldn't
from
be
your
put,
experience on the Board of Ed, that it's, you can set a replacement cycle. It's really hard to stick to it because when you have a hard budget season, you're gonna choose people over every time that happens year after year. We are hopefully not on a good replacement cycle now for our Chromebook devices, but it's been a number of years since smart boards have been updated.
my point is, I think it's a tough sell to start putting in things like that into a capital project for the town, non-Board of Ed. They own the buildings, Board of Ed occupies it. I think we're stepping a hair too far at that point. That's my take. I think that needs to be on Board of Ed side. That's, you guys operate our buildings. That we have to look at it from a building standpoint. I think the Board of Ed does a good job under rotation, and everything you said is on. You have constraints based on, the money you're given them.
But regardless, then there is a chunk of funds set aside that Bob left in there for classroom renovations. And I think
I
to
know,
your point, Bob, that would be allocated as needed. Right? Like,
right, and I guess the question would be, is that under building capital or is that under Board of Education? They currently have all these items. They're going to be shifted around between classroom. I just want to make sure we're doing it right. I was bringing up the point, should chairs and tables be on a building committee? Or should that be on Board of Education under their normal rotation for each classroom? And I'm not, I'm not trying to create,
Where it is now, because you have a bond. Try to get it into.
no, yeah.
$10,000 rotation of.
I just want to be, first of all, I'd want somebody to answer that question, so we're doing it legally. If we're not, this is a building committee.
it's absolutely part of the whole big picture. Like if you're, I mean, I know we're talking about capital improvements, but when we're talking about renovate to new, all of that's included furnishings and technology as well.
And
Because it's considered to be part of
well,
part of
that's,
the
I
space.
want to hear that from an expert, because two things. Number one, the town of Portland owns the buildings. The Board of Education occupies it. This is a capital committee, and we're talking about our structures and our infrastructure and how to make them safe for the town. The things on the inside, the way I look at it, and I could be wrong, and I want to make sure if we were to go to bond on anything, whether it's renovate to nice or renovate to new, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure we're doing it right. And I'm just nervous that if we start throwing in all these fixtures, I'm not sure, because keep in mind that this is going on the town of Portland side, not the Board of Education side. And I just want to make sure, and I don't know who to ask. I don't even know.
Well, either way, if you're bonding for capital improvements or moving to new,
Mhm.
you don't want to go back every year after that and say, oh, we need another $20,000 a year for furniture, when you could have just put it in and been good for 20 years.
And if it's
That's the way I
legal,
look at
if
it.
it's
You don't
legal,
want to pay interest on it.
I'm okay with
Get
it.
it.
I struggle to see how when the
Interest on a
buildings,
desk.
the buildings are owned by the town of Portland. They are operated by the Board of Education. The Board of Education has a completely separate budget. In their budget is to take the fixtures, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not in the operational.
I just
Or
want
in the- in the
clarification.
Maintenance budget.
I'm not trying to
Absolutely
create
not.
any drama. I just want clarification that that is the right path. Whether,
By
Yeah.
chairs or tables.
Yep.
It's capital expenditures if it's there. It's not in any operational budget that I know of,
okay,
unless it's specifically added, which I think it ever should be.
I
Not
have,
a building
Because
maintenance.
when you think about it, right,
New fixtures.
capital is useful for something that is a one-time purchase that's gonna last a long time. You don't
Last
want
5
that.
years or more.
Or 10 or 20 years, right? Your tables are not going away. You're not replacing them every year and you don't want them as part of
Like the
your
vans.
operating
Yeah, like
budget,
the
like the
vans. Yeah,
van.
yeah.
It makes sense that you want to treat it as capital.
and I just want to make
And
sure
There's
that,
precedent too for the town purchasing furniture and other departments as capital because
And
that's how it
everything
makes
here, when
sense.
this was done. all was done.
I just
If
want to
we
make sure,
replace This here that you're looking
This
at,
was
I'd be
all-
looking for. a
The whole
capital.
building was all.
I just want to make sure that, I know there's a difference between Board of Ed side. I know enough to be dangerous. I know there's a difference between Board of Ed side and the general side.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we're not crossing any line. That was all. I'm not trying to take out desks or anything. I just
Capital
saying,
is townwide.
okay, That's all I would like us to double check. That's all.
With the technology piece, I just,
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
25 minutes.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah, so there's only two more areas
Okay,
there.
we got, you
Um,
guys want to be out of here by like quarter over 10 of,
And that, please.
10 of, we've
So-
got like 15 minutes and that's it. Right, quarter of,
And-
great.
I was wrong.
I gotta park a car.
I left the exterior lighting in 75.
You left the exterior
did.
lighting.
We talked about the 75, it's just both ended up being the same.
Oh, okay.
So that was my bad.
That's all right.
So Bob,
Put
in
it
our,
there.
in our
As long as we
parking
have the
lot
two.
would probably be new lighting in
Correct.
that project.
Well, it's
Separated from exterior lighting,
exterior building.
exterior building. These are
And then
fixtures on the
South
building.
side, yep. And then the next item will go along with that. Okay, I put $2 million in as an estimate for the parking lot,
Okay.
okay? Change that line item. And then the replace south sides. Those are
Move that
the
up from 1.7 to 2.
1.7 was the original.
1.7 was 1819.
Could we get a breakdown when Jacobson gives that to you? I'm just curious, how much is the parking lot lighting? And I think that's a necessity at this point. And I know I'm
It's
gonna
part
probably
of the-
poke a nerve. The water issue in the back and all that, I believe are. Right, I just want to know the difference between the two and that may, if
Oh,
we have to do it
so
in two parts.
that's
'cause
all
That
in
could be
the-
done separate. I just want, I just want to see the dollar.
I saw the plan, but I didn't see quantities or anything.
Yeah, there's quantities for just about everything. There's unit costs, there's quantities
Can
as
you get
far
that
as,
to me?
yeah, there's saw cutting, concrete, everything's in.
How about
This is
the,
what I wanted to update.
now the drainage, is that around the building? Is that the back field? I've heard all different
That
things.
was,
I just want to know, I want to have a
it
handle on
was
it.
around the building and picking up.
Picking up from the
that
rear.
backfield, but not going all the way down with it to the lower fields. But it was getting all of that water issue around the back of the building, because I was like, you gotta get rid of this. We got nothing but ice around this back of this building. And again, I think we started this in 2015 or 16 or something, or maybe even 14, started this.
Is it like, I don't even know what it is. Is it like a series of couple catch basins for the building? and
There's some catch basins around there, but then it just stopped and it just kind of flows out at a certain point and
Yeah, it's like.
we added a yard grade down there.
For $80,000.
What,
There's a lot worth going into new catch basins, underground detention system for 80,000, which is probably a slow release. You know, a lot of those things are in here, they're all sidewalk removal, replacement, removal of catch basins, so I'll get this. to you.
yeah, the only reason I ask is, I'll just make up a number. If it's 2 million and it's 400 to do the water and maybe we don't have, and things get real crazy tight, well, maybe we're doing the parking lot. We're not doing the water right now in the highway crew. We could maybe get some in-house stuff done. I don't know.
Yeah, all the electricals in there. new
I just want to make sure we at
light
least get a
poles,
certain package complete.
Yeah.
And if there's some give and take, that would be how
Landscaping.
I would look at it, but.
Guardrails, everything.
with
That's
the
all.
parking lot, does that include completely like redoing the drop off area?
Yeah.
And like,
You didn't see this?
no, I did, but I just want to make sure that includes, and does that include like the
Separates
new,
everything to the.
a new playground?
Yeah, that comes out. in the
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
we're moving the
relocates
existing.
Yeah.
Existing
That-
playground
Is it-
to behind the
Behind the
school
school.
and make space for a separate parent pickup
Right.
drop off
That's
and a
fantastic.
separate bus loop.
Because pickup and drop off at Gildersleeve is a nightmare.
And I think somebody mentioned it softened the grades going towards the back.
It does,
Yeah.
it does. There's
Yeah.
tucks and fills there that'll take that parking lot around. So the existing drainage in the parking lot now is probably gonna be replaced all the way back. Picked up, you're gonna fill into where the places are and stuff. Pick that grade up. Kids are gonna get dropped off on the side and loop around and go back down it. We're not making another curb cut on Main Street, though. I don't think we can do that. I think it was gonna tie into that exit driveway somehow.
And you probably better.
State would
you
never
got
let
the-
us put a third chart.
And you got the light there. You're better off.
Yeah.
Those final 3 items, there's 2,000 in there for South Side pathway, and then there's an 11,000 and 8,000 items for pathways. Were you
So
keeping those?
the 8,000 is, yes, I left 11,000
Left
for the back, because to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not quite sure what's gonna go on if we have to do drainage back there.
Yeah.
Might be part of that, so
Okay,
some of that might be removed.
That sidewalk back there is nowhere near big
It's-
enough.
No,
I know there was, I can't remember every detail, but when we eliminated the drop off on the side street, is there any reason to not bring that back? What was the reason? I know there was, because that helped alleviate a
You
lot
know,
of,
Bartlett?
yeah, it helped alleviate a lot of the drop.
You used it.
What's
Yeah,
that?
You used it when the Bartlett.
we used
Well,
it during COVID when we were trying to take
Yeah.
spread out drop offs.
But I remember at one point, something triggered where we stopped using it as much. I mean, it was literally a line.
We had made some
There was-
repairs
we
on the
stopped
stairs.
at-
I know that.
Okay, so these are the things I don't know. Okay,
Because you're right, my boys, I would drop off there.
a lot of people preferred it. Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't.
Something.
Yeah, it's still there though.
there was something.
Something.
It is, but
There was
it's not.
something. Yeah, I don't-
Right.
For this.
I mean, it would need to be cleaned up and.
Yeah, and it was just a thought. It helps alleviate.
Good luck with
Yeah.
that.
We use it during
Send you,
COVID.
make you pay for it.
Helpful.
Those stairs become an issue there too.
There's so
Okay,
many-
and those are the things I want to hear. You know, I don't have a handle on it.
It's a good thing to use for maybe a special event. I remember they used to put temporary lights up there during, you know, open house.
Park, come down there, we have a Halloween parades.
Exactly.
So my total is actually a little lower than what your estimate started off as. I'm not,
Did you do escalation?
no,
No,
because
What do you have for a
Escalation
total?
on at least 6 million of that.
it's 6 million, so I've got a total of 8,031,000, so you reduced.
Yep,
It's
so I
really
had
similar to, the
Yeah.
you know, the
8336. We did some changes there. We removed some stuff, but then. Yeah, I did my estimate on escalation based on the only estimates I had was you gotta, of that number, we had to at least put escalation on 6 million of that. What
okay.
the escalation number is,
Well,
I put 20
Hey.
numbers.
hang on, Bob.
Yeah.
You escalated 2 million alone for the sidewalk. Or sorry, for the parking lot drainage.
Well, no, because
That's it, the only one.
it was at 1.7, so we only brought it up to,
But
sorry.
he escalated that number.
Yes.
2 million out of the
No.
eight has already been escalated.
I removed that. That's not part of that escalation.
Okay,
That's
wait.
why you said,
okay,
listen, on
So-
that, close to 9 million, but you only put escalation on 6 of that. The other stuff is good estimates.
okay.
so your total tonight with the 2 million is 8,031,000, correct?
That's what I thought.
Okay, and out of that 8 million,
You're-
2 million of it was already escalated because we put in the $2 million.
So that's what he says, you need to escalate 6 million of
So
it.
did you put in a roof number? Didn't we escalate the roof number also?
Roof number is good, yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah, I was a million and a
Right.
half off. Mine's
So-
9-ish.
So my point is, we're at least up to 3 million that's already been
Right, three.
escalated. So, yeah,
So I
okay,
got to 6 because I was at 9.
okay, so, oh, yeah, there you go.
There's your.
Yeah, there you go. So
Nice.
now
You
it would
need
be
that.
5 needed.
Yeah, the roof
Um,
in the civil outdoors,
We're
the only thing that.
That's
really
what
made the number.
I wanted to
For
hear.
children's.
5
But I
million.
did want to just highlight that we have, we've been making a list of things that aren't really reflected in here, including we pulled out all the cooling numbers and you said that there's sort of a question mark about what that. And I don't think that was represented anywhere else in here, right? Okay, so cooling is a question mark.
Not properly, not with that chiller stuff for $4,000 or $5,000.
Right, those were the chillers you took out, but it's still at the AC, right, Bob?
But you were
Nothing
talking
on
about rooftop,
So
Rooftop versus, there's so many
Right.
different ways you can do a school like that because
Right.
it's a single level. You might be much cheaper by putting in a split system.
okay,
You can do rooms with a lot less work with compressors outside of those areas, or you can do rooftops in big areas, gymnasium.
I think what you're looking for, Laurel, is if we went with that style, we then don't need the chillers. But he doesn't know if we're guaranteed to go with that style. I think
then
it's,
we would need something else
no,
reflected in here.
no, it's already in with
Not
the,
in-
It's not in here.
oh, there is no
That's what
HVAC
I'm
number
trying
for
to say.
AC?
There's a list of things that I
Okay.
think are not in here, and
Okay.
my list includes cooling.
I got solid numbers for up here.
Okay,
I don't have any
Okay.
solid specs
Yeah.
to work off of, engineering specs to
Fair.
work off of what we can use there. So in renovate to new, they use the square footage calculation based on providing AC with dehumidification for the entire space. And that's in there. Did we pull that out? From the renovate to new? Well, I'll have to ask them because it's not itemized really that way. It's itemized in graphics where it's HVAC included with some other stuff, heat HVAC. Do we pull that out to give us a good number? We can ask. What they estimated for that square footage of the school.
so we had
So-
no AC numbers in here? Under-
Right, so just real quick, so I can just say them out loud, so we are all on the same page. The things that I heard us talk about tonight that I don't believe are in here, the cooling. We've asked Fryer to explore the gym bleacher bump out drainage combination. It's a question mark about sprinklers and fire escape doors. We didn't talk about whether
replacement of, or
Different.
fixing those exterior doors that are miniature.
I left that exterior door numbers in there as well as all the interior door numbers so we can configure.
Okay, so
those.
that's included. And what about, you talked about needing to seal the floors.
Yep, that's on my
That's
list
all
too.
included.
That's
Okay,
questionable. No, it's
great.
questionable.
Oh, it's questionable.
Mhm.
So it is sort of still, okay, I'm keeping that on the list.
Because like I said, portions of that building may not be, we have to do water testing.
Right.
Okay. We did a big project at the library and we didn't go to the extreme where we didn't seal the library where it would have been sealed like a Hoover Dam because we were getting returns on moisture from the library that weren't too bad. So we did seal it and I think it's worked well there, just based on what I've heard from energy conservation. So we saved a little money there, but we did seal it. So I kind of, we have to take that step, drill some holes, find out where the moisture is. So I mean, we might be only in one wing that we have to seal, but if we pull moisture out of the whole place, then it's a whole different ballgame. But before you're gonna do anything to the floors, you're gonna rip them and you're gonna seal it. Maybe you epoxy them and don't put
The tile,
PCT or,
right.
right. For different.
So,
spaces.
so are you thinking, and I feel terrible even asking because it's so broad. Are you thinking maybe instead of the tile, we could seal it and some of the numbers we have in here will work, or absolutely not? We need more money?
No, I mean, if you talk to the people that do that for a living,
Mhm.
and I look at the square footage that we did those ceiling projects in firehouses and picnic grounds areas, it's big money.
Yeah.
The process to get the warranty is big money. It's how they varnish the floor top section so you can get the adhesion and then do the coating system to seal it and then they do the final seal pour, you pop your stuff off the walls.
So how are we gonna come up with a number for, is Fryer or somebody working, a cooling number for that school, I believe?
We'll have to talk to him to see if he can pull that out of his renovates too, because it wouldn't be different.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a ballpark number. We need to put a placeholder. I believe that's one of the things as a group, and I hate speaking for everybody, but I think that was one of the important line items was air conditioning, whether it's renovation or renovate to new. I believe that's something that needs to be addressed. So,
Okay.
so if we could have a number to put in there as a placeholder. And Laurel, did you get over the other items? We had the,
They're looking into the gym bleacher bump outs.
Okay.
We've got the floors that we just talked about, sealing the floors and sprinklers. Those are the 4 items that were question marks still.
thank you.
I can reach out if you have questions. All right. That's all right. Well, thank you for the track.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I'm gonna share
It's
with
pretty
you.
close.
And before our next meeting, Bob, maybe you and I could look at, I have good notes. I have good notes on the biz and the Gildersleeve list. I'm not confident that my high school, middle school project list matches yours. So
I'm
I'd
gonna
love to,
send you that to you.
that'd be helpful. Thank you.
And once again,
We did up that a couple times.
I'd like to thank Bob. I think you're
You're welcome.
way above and beyond your your job, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, but I will say this, and it's very important for everybody to know that this method, you can miss a lot.
Oh,
So it's when people adding stuff on and being concerned about things. That's important because there's not, you can miss a lot. Miss some big items, ceiling floors, rooftop units. I mean, I flagged them that.
I'm not even comfortable with this.
Right?
and I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, no, I'm not comfortable at all with it.
I would,
Anymore.
I think,
just-
yeah,
We just went way up. Just 4 or 5 items, we went way up.
right. And I think if,
Easy.
when we do our deliberations, I think if there's, well, we already know there's gonna be some buildings are gonna be renovations. We may need to send that back out. These are what we think we need at this, up here, for example.
Look, I can see it now.
Okay, done.
Yeah. It's not for me. I mean, if
Yeah,
you guys want to
appreciate
go, go ahead and go. We can close the meeting.
Are we done? I'll make the motion.
Oh, we gotta.
Hold on, we still gotta do this. So first of all, let's just do this quickly. We're gonna skip next week. We'll plan on the following Thursday. Does that work?
Yeah.
Next year, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, all right?
We're skipping next, right?
We're skipping next week. So we can shift on, not a lot of.
Yeah.
What's the date on that?
It's April 24th.
24.
You guys prefer 5 or 6?
6 or 8.
I prefer 6 also, but I'm
Okay. we can
majority
do
rules,
that.
majority rules.
We
That's
can do
only
that. So April, what was it, 20?
24th.
24th,
24th.
24th, 6 P M.
here, we're assuming.
Yeah, I don't
Yep.
see
Okay.
anything.
Yeah, we'll always be here unless otherwise noted, because this is, okay, the national meeting, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay.
Let's see, any public comment? You guys need to go.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead and adjourn. Oh, no, there's.
I just, see you.
Stephanie Tatro, Great Hill Road. Nice to see y'all again. This was good. Ben, one of the things I think you might ask Tom Robinson, I believe the town probably has a capitalization policy that says assets that you purchase over X dollars are eligible to be capitalized. And when you have that concept, I'm thinking specifically of the smart boards that you guys were talking about. It would be appropriate, most likely, to be able to include those as part of this capitalization reconstruction project. And it would not be untoward to do that. So having been an auditor for 17 years, I would totally buy off that.
Stephanie, I just want to, I'm gonna have to watch this online because I legitimately have to run next door and meet my wife and kids.
Yep.
And there's gonna be a few of us leaving, but I'm going to listen and I greatly appreciate everything you always say. So I don't want you to think I'm just getting up and
No,
leaving.
no, no.
Uh,
It said you had to go, so, but I wanted to just give you that to noodle on and talk to
and I
them
will ask
about.
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Laura, can you share your version? Because I was trying to keep track and I came up with a higher number than you did, so I think I missed some things.
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, I wanna coordinate my numbers with Bob and make sure that.
Yeah.
That our versions all match, but I think, yes.
okay, thank you, because I came up with 9.2 million, so I'm a little worried. And the other thing I'm gonna ask you guys again is, as we're going through this, if you could please keep in mind that it would be nice if we can find money to pay our teachers, because we don't pay them enough. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Anything online? Nope. Okay, motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, see you on the 24th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, those are some, of course.